And we are live with a Music Manumit Lawcast, and we have had a fair amount of technical difficulty, and thus we are not bringing you video today. And actually, if you're watching us live, which you probably aren't, because we're not on the Music Manumit stream right now, we're on my stream, some weird technical difficulty. But we are going to get this show out to you, and today's topic is on the performance rights organizations in the U.S. Now, we've talked about on MMP. So this is another thing that I've sort of struggled with the naming. I should probably go ahead and tell people that MMP, MML, and MME. I think that's the easy way to, instead of calling it the main show, because that sounds like maybe there's another law show that's like the main one and this is the side show. I don't know. So I think we've always called what I have been referring to as the main show as MMP in shorthand. So I'm just going to go with that, MMP. And then this is the MML, and then we have the MME, which is Music Manumit Extra, which we spoke about on the last show on band agreements, which just got out yesterday. Right. So, Thomas, before we get started, we both have something to drink today. We don't have boxes to show so that people can see them today, but I have a honey vanilla chamomile celestial seasons tea, herbal. It's an herbal tea, caffeine free. So. But I had the same coffee as I did last time, so I wanted to do something else. This stuff is amazing. If you don't like chamomile, it's probably not for you. I mean, the honey and vanilla definitely, take it apart from a normal chamomile, but the chamomile's taste is strong as well. And I like a lot of their teas. Probably going to see some of their teas on shows in the future, but not going to talk about those.
No, that chamomile, Doug, that doesn't make you too tired in the morning, does it?
No. So there are some things that are designed for like sleepy time teas and stuff, and often they have chamomile in them, but they have other things in them as well. So this is just a good tea. It's good hot or cold, and some teas you really want them to be hot, but this one. It's good any time of the year. I think maybe the honey and the vanilla make it a little more summery than just a plain chamomile.
Sounds good. Sounds good.
What do you have for us today?
I'm hitting a little. It's called Hawaiian Blend coffee, and it's the brand name is Simply Enjoy, and it is really really good stuff. It's kind of it's not too dark, not too light. It's just a nice little blend for me. And I'm really enjoying my coffee this morning. Drinking it out of my, of course, Maryland Music Lawyer cup.
Yeah, so am I, even though you can see that, but the people on the video cannot. Or the people that there is no video, I guess. That would be a good coffee to have if we were doing trademarks today, because man, that is, you could have teas called Simply Enjoy. Like that sounds like it's like a trademark suit waiting to happen.
Absolutely. Yeah. Good point.
So, but that is not what we are talking about today. We are talking about the performance rights organizations, alphabetical order. They are ASCAP, BMI, CSAC, and Sound Exchange. So, Thomas, take it away.
Yeah, so let's just talk briefly about let's just start with just a broad description of what and I like to call them PROs, performance rights organizations. A PRO helps songwriters and publishers basically get paid for the usage of their music by collecting one of the most important types of publishing revenue, which is performance royalties. Now, before 1897, there was no public performance right, but that changed, and one of the leaders in getting all this started was a guy you probably never heard of him, but in a case called Herbert v. Shanley. Okay, so the Victor Herbert was at a restaurant in Manhattan. Okay, so he's a big time composer in Manhattan, and he's listening to music, and he realizes that the restaurant is playing his music, and he's not getting paid for it. So the long the long of it is that he brought suit, and it went up to the Supreme Court in a landmark case, Herbert v. Shanley. The owner of the hotel had to pay for a blanket license to publicly perform this music, even though they were not charging the public to hear the music. But it's a landmark case. Herbert went on and founded ASCAP, which is probably the first PRO in the country.
So we should probably back up for people that don't have a lot of exposure with copyright. No, right now we're under some iteration of the 1978 Act. We've bolted some stuff on top of that. And there was the 1909 Act, and there was some other stuff in between there as well.
Right.
Basically, the 1909 Act's the big one. So this is before the 1909 Act. So, most of the weirdness that we talk about with like public domain comes from a lot of the 1909 Act stuff. But this is even before that. So, what do you know what act we were at during that time? I don't know off the top of my head.
What? Say it again, Doug. What
was the Copyright Act? How long had that one been in place? Do you know off the top of your head? I don't.
No, I don't know.
Okay, I can just cut that out.
Yeah. So it's the American Society of Composers, Authors, and Publishers, ASCAP, founded in 1914. And as a matter of fact, if you're heading up to New York, you can find a statue of this gentleman in Central Park because it was a very important. He's an important figure for composers and music publishers in getting paid for their public performances. So for the first 20 years, ASCAP dominated the public performance collection until about 1930, when BMI was established as kind of the counter to ASCAP. A lot of people were getting pissed off at ASCAP as kind of being a monopoly. So BMI, Broadcast Music Incorporated, was created, and I don't know what year exactly. I'm thinking in the late 30s. And maybe 39, I think. So it was created as kind of the alternative to ASCAP. So it too was one of the very early performance rights organizations. ASCAP and BMI are and still are the two major performance rights organizations in the country. And so what does this mean? Let me just break it down for your average guy who's listening. ASCAP and BMI will pay royalties stemming from public performance of music from television, radio. And if you want to make some coin on your music, you can affiliate with ASCAP or BMI and perhaps make some money from the public performance of your songs. I think ASCAP is $50 to join, and that's for lifetime. And I think I'm a member of ASCAP, and I think BMI is free. And I have no preference over either one. I have no, financial affiliation with either one. They are both very good organizations in order to get your public performance royalties. Doug, are you a member of either one?
No. Yeah, I've not recorded but a couple of tracks just that were basically to test out the tools involved.
Right.
So, actually, that's not true. There's a third one that maybe Lost to the Sound of Time. I'll have to check it out I entered like a Freak Fandango orchestra, who's a longtime friend of the MMP. I entered one of their remix contests, and again, it was just me just like messing about with stuff. So
yeah, and just so you know, you can join ASCAP without having any music currently published. And you can get a lot of nice emails and just kind of industry blogs, and they have a great newsletter that comes out every day. So you can join ASCAP as a songwriter and not yet have any music published. So that's just a little side note there. So then we have the creation of ASCAP and BMI. Now, these are interesting organizations because they operate under consent decrees created by the Department of Justice. In other words, their rates are governed by the Copyright Royalty Board, which is a panel of 3 judges. I think they're in the Eastern District of maybe New Jersey. I'm not quite sure. And they determine what rates these 2 organizations have to pay. And as a matter of fact, this summer there was a lot of testimony heard in front of Congress because the new rates will begin in 2016 and will continue into 2020. So there's a lot of things going on in Congress, in the Copyright Royalty Board, hearing a lot of testimony from a lot of different people in considering where these rates should go. So that's a little something that's happening in Congress. Now, let's talk about CSAC. And I used to do some work for CSAC. CSAC is not a member of these consent decrees. They operate independently. CSAC has only about 5% of all the performance rights songwriters. But they have some big ones. They have Bob Dylan. When Bob Dylan is played on terrestrial radio, it is CSAC that is paying him for his publisher for his performance rights. CSAC, you cannot join CSAC. They have to ask you to join. It's just a little different. And they're a great organization, but they're just a little different. Anybody can join BMI. Anyone can join ASCAP. But CSAC has to offer you a membership. Now check this out. This is hot new stuff that just happened a couple weeks ago. CSAC paid $20 million and bought the Harry Fox organization. Now, a lot of people are like, what is Harry Fox? I will tell you just briefly. Harry Fox issues mechanical licenses for music. In other words, let's say Doug writes a song and it's published, and then Joe Blow comes along and he wants to record his cover version of it. Harry Fox organization would issue what's called a mechanical license in order for Joe Blow to record Doug's song. And it's just a ballpark figure. If Doug's song is under 5 minutes, it's 9.1 cents for each song or each CD pressed. So this is huge, because what's happening now is that the performance rights organizations now want to broaden out of just issuing public performance licenses. They want to get into a lot of different things, and CSAC led the way, and they bought Harry Fox, which is big stuff. So that's just a little side note.
So they're becoming more of a collection society if they're doing both than just a PRO.
That's correct. And a lot of PROs in the let me grab it right here. I recommend everyone download the Copyright and Music Marketplace report that was issued by the United States Copyright Office in February of this year. Now, it's lengthy, but it describes in detail, in pretty layman's terms, exactly what PROs do, how their rates are set, how the copyright world works, and it's a great publication. You can get it at the United States Copyright Office and just download it. Okay, so now let's understand this, and we've talked about it a million times. Doug writes a song and he records it, so two copyrights exist. The musical composition, which Doug wrote, his lyrics, his beat structure, the melody, and then Doug goes into his local recording studio and records the music. That is a second copyright, and that is what's called a sound recording copyright. Now, that was not recognized on a federal level until 1972, I believe it was. 72. There were certainly state laws before that that would protect sound recordings, but it wasn't federalized until 1972. So what does that mean? Let me just look at my notes real quick. It was I forget the name of the act, I got it right here. The Digital Performance Right in Sound Recording Act of 1995. What this means is that you can now take if you're the owner of your sound recording, you can register it with a company called Sound Exchange. And Sound Exchange is a performance rights organization that pays royalties for the public performance on a digital level for non-interactive webcasting of the sound recording. This is not the same as ASCAP, which pays songwriters and publishers. Sound Exchange pays half of the money to the owner of the sound recording and the other half to the featured artists. And let me get a drink real fast. And Sound Exchange also pays 5% to backup session musicians. And Sound Exchange, folks, is paying out lots and lots of money. So a little tip, if you are a musician and you record some music, I highly recommend you join Sound Exchange. And I think it's free. I think it's like $50 if you want to get their emails and stuff like that. But you can register your songs. I recommend that when you record music, you put as much metadata as you can into your music, and then register these songs with this performance rights organization called Sound Exchange in order to get royalties for non-interactive webcasting, as well as TV, as well as satellite, Sirius XM, things like that. So those are the major ones: ASCAP, BMI, CSAC, and Sound Exchange. These are the performance. And, Doug, I think there's a little tiny one that just deals with Christian music.
Yes, there is. They are not just U.S. based. They are international.
Okay. Yeah. And Doug, I would have to look to you to explain perhaps isn't there a Canadian PRO sound scan or something like
it's SOCAN. I don't actually know what the SOCAN. It's all caps, so it makes it look like it's an acronym, but I don't know. CAN obviously is short for Canada, and so
right.
I don't know. In sound might be just SO. I don't know what it stands for, but yeah. So recently we had on MMP a show I think called Copyright Fight, where TR and I talked about Lee Rosevere's. Basically, he had to do a bunch of stuff, and we didn't know the whole story when we spoke about it on the show. But he has since commented and given more or less the entire story into the comments for that show. So if you just go to the musicmanumit.com and just search for Copyright Fight, you should be able to find that and listen to that show and read his comments about his dealings with SOCAN. And so we weren't 100% sure at the time that we recorded the audio whether or not the track in question was a Creative Commons track. And it is. So, because some musicians, they'll release some things that are Creative Commons and other things not under Creative Commons. So, but the track in question was released under Creative Commons. So you can sign up for SOCAN with Creative Commons music. And I know you can do that with ASCAP as well. I'm not sure about the others. I know that because Trent Reznor is a member of ASCAP, and Trent Reznor has released, he was nominated for a Grammy for Ghosts, which is Creative Commons licensed, and then The Slip is also Creative Commons licensed. I know, and I don't know about the whole Smashing Pumpkins situation with their Creative Commons license album is a little strange because it was never officially released.
Right.
So they just released it to fans on vinyl, and they just told the fans, do what you want. You can't sell it because of our label deal. And that was before Creative Commons existed. But as soon as Creative Commons existed, people started licensing it, licensing their rip of the vinyl under Creative Commons. And the label, nobody from the Smashing Pumpkins, nobody has attempted to shut any of that down. So my assumption is they're okay. It's been 15 years since that album has been released. So, the statute of limitations on that, well, it may not be a strict statute of limitations, but it'd be like latches or something. Like you can't go back 15 years and start collecting on things. So, and that all those albums are released under BY-NCSA. So I think that NC part is going to be really important to the ASCAPs and the SOCANs of the world. I don't know. It's interesting. I don't know how this works with Sound Exchange. I guess it's just a dual license because there are, I assume it's Sound Exchange. I don't know. Sound Exchange is how it would work through Pandora, for example, right?
Correct.
Okay. Correct. So Chris Zabriskie, who we've had on MMP a couple of times now, all of his stuff that's not, commissioned work is CC BY. So the simplest attribution license, but his stuff is on Pandora. And, but I guess you don't have to give, you have to give the license. It's a little bit weird because theoretically Pandora they could do that outside of Sound Exchange, but they probably don't just because it's easy for him. It's just easier for them to do that, to have a single point of failure. But somehow Chris Zabriskie is got his stuff on Pandora. Maybe he's just not getting paid for it. I just don't know how that works. But I would think, if push comes to shove, basically, and you want to get paid through these through the PROs, you probably need to be using the non-commercial license, because the other stuff you can definitely do it. It would definitely be, if his stuff was under the BYSA and they weren't, saying that that's what the license was, then, basically they're getting a separate license. And the whole attribution thing, there are some parts in there that say basically you need to distribute the license and things. So I guess they would technically be in violation of there, but it's definitely not as strong. I mean, they are giving attribution, which is sort of the main point of the attribution license. So, and I just don't know. I haven't looked into the Pandora stuff as much. But anyway, all that is just to say there's varying ways to deal with these different organizations. And I don't know I mean, I guess CSAC probably wouldn't. Well, I don't know. It would depend. So like Jonathan Colton is, well, I mean, even like Nine Inch Nails, I mean, they're a huge name. So, why wouldn't CSAC necessarily go after somebody like that? I mean, maybe they would, but it's a little bit different since you can't just like sign up. And I don't know about BMI off the top of my head. I mean,
yeah. Another interesting act in front of Congress now is called the Fair Pay Act, which was introduced in April of this year. And basically, this act would create a terrestrial performance right for sound recordings, and that would require AM and FM radio broadcasters to pay the owner of the copyright sound recording for its performance. Most countries already have that. We don't. AM and FM is paying ASCAP for the songwriters and not the musical composition, not for the sound recording. So obviously the broadcasters don't like that, but certainly the owners, and it's usually the labels of the masters, the sound recordings, love it. So we'll see how that plays out. There's a lot of things going on in the copyright world, and here at Manumit Music and Maryland Music Lawyer, we are going to keep everybody up to speed on what's going on. I will be attending the Future of Music Coalition in October, which is a great source of news and information about the industry.
And in years past, they have broadcasted their main auditorium. So I assume that they will do that again. I haven't heard that they have fallen on any hard economic times within their organization. So I can't imagine it's too hard to pay somebody to record a room.
Right. Yeah. And I really like Creative Commons, and I think Creative Commons and ASCAP and BMI can all get along. I just think there's going to be a lot of changes coming up in the next few years. There's also probably going to be a change in the mechanical license rate, which will increase. Musicians are not getting paid, Doug. Musicians are not getting paid enough money when they want to monetize. Streaming of music does not pay much money. And I think that needs to change if you're into that type of genre. If you're into making money in music, these rates have to change. What do you think about that?
Well, I mean, at the very least, you would think they would go with inflation. Inflation is sort of a weird thing because of the income gap. So we're technically having inflation, but like actual worker wages are deflating. So I mean, I would assume, since I don't know when the last rate hike is, but basically I would assume that musician rates are deflating as well. So you'd at least want to keep it up with inflation. I mean, people get irritated because they have to pay more and stuff, but it's like, if things cost more, then you're gonna, that's the way it works. So
yeah. But I do recommend that you affiliate with if you've recorded some music, and I would recommend you affiliate with either ASCAP, BMI, or Sound Exchange. It's very inexpensive, and you never know. You might get a song that really blows up, and you might start getting a little bit of coin coming in from these organizations. I'm not super pro PRO. I just think for now, these organizations tend to work. They have problems, but they do tend to pay people some money. So I think it's worth it.
Do I assume all of the organizations require you to have filed with the Copyright Office, or do they
No,
not? Okay.
no, not at
So
all.
what would you, I mean, my thought would be, if you were going to do one or the other, would be to file the copyright registration. That way, if somebody claims that you copied them, you have the evidence otherwise. But I guess, I mean, it's the registration is prima facie evidence, but the acceptance from ASCAP BMI, that would also be evidence. You know, you still have a date there. So
yeah, yeah. And as a matter of fact, when you register with ASCAP, there is a little blank that says, what is your copyright registration number for your songs. You don't have to fill that in, but it is a blank there that you can. Yeah, I am also for registering your songs with the Copyright Office. I think it's a fantastic idea.
I just know a lot of people, though, you know, think like, oh, this is a lot of stuff I have to do, and you know, but you got to do it basically. So if you, I mean, you don't have to, but if you really want to, if you're serious about it, you do have to do it. So
yeah. And one last thing on ASCAP, a lot of people have usually independent musicians don't have a publishing deal. So when you register with ASCAP, they will ask you, what is the name of your publishing company? If you don't have one, you can leave it blank and fill that in later. And usually it's just a little publishing company that you create in order to get the other 50% of your publishing revenue.
Yeah, so I seem to remember at the Future Music Coalition Policy Summit last year, the Sound Exchange people were saying that you can't leave it blank on theirs, that you need to put something in there, even if it's just your name, or otherwise that money like goes into a pot and you don't get that. I might be misremembering some of the details, but I remember they were very persistent about making sure you fill in all of the stuff and just putting your name in. Like, okay, if you had, maybe it was a label, maybe it wasn't publisher, but they were like, you have to have a label if that's what it was.
That's correct, because Sound Exchange is asking for the owner of the label as well as who is the featured artist.
Yeah.
So yeah, you better put some names in there. Exactly.
Or you're not going to get that money, basically.
That's correct. And also, when you register with Sound Exchange, they will want a checking or savings account number in order to deposit your funds. So that's something to consider as well.
So anything else on PROs here before we go, Thomas?
No, it's not the most sexiest thing to talk about, but they are important. They're going to be changing. You're gonna see, and you've heard it here first, you're gonna see ASCAP start to issue not only performance rights blanket licenses, but you're going to see them start issuing sync license and mechanical license. It's going to change. And it's already started with CSAC and its acquisition of Harry Fox. So exciting things are going to be happening.
So we spoke a little bit about this today with the covers and the 9.1 cents, I think it was. So next time in September, we are going to talk about derivative works, cover being a specific type of derivative work. And if you don't know what derivative works are, that's fine. We'll tell you all about it in September. We don't have a date yet, but just follow the Music Manumit YouTube page for that, and maybe we'll have a date by the time I get this up on musicmanumit.com. But for now, thank you for listening to another Music Manumit Lawcast.
Thank you.